Hey, how's it going today, guys? Hope you all enjoyed episode 10 out in the beautiful Montana mountains. Today, episode 11, we're going to be back in the garage. Got the SWM Project RS500 up on the stand, and we're going to be getting ready for the Idaho City 100 Enduro race here next week. So I'll walk you through everything that I'm going to do on the bike here, and we'll get started. We got a lot to do. All right, so walkthrough of what we're going to do on the RS500 today. IMS Tank Install, ideally. That's going to be a task, I'll tell you what. So I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. Other thing I'm going to do is reroute the head breather. So right now the head breather comes like this and goes into the air boot. Because as you can see, the super annoying thing here is because the head vents into inside the air box past the air filter, like when you tip over, it basically dumps a bunch of oil, as you can see, into the inside of the air boot, which saturates your filter and just generally makes a huge mess. So that's one of the main reasons I want to do this mod here, to basically reroute the head vent and then plug off this hole so that no more oil comes in here. We're going to reroute this guy here, plug this off. So that's something we'll do today. Another thing we're going to be doing is switching Flexx bars. So right now I've got a wider set on. I've got this narrower set that we're going to throw on instead. So I'm going to be able to fit through the trees a little better in Idaho City. What else are we going to do? We'll do a Rekluse adjustment. I'm going to show you guys a little bit more how you can do that, how you can like custom adjust the Rekluse. So we'll talk about that a little bit. We're also going to pull the steering stem. We'll pull the forks, and we're going to grease the steering stem bearings because those feel like they're starting to get a little bit tight. So we'll go through and do that, and just generally get this thing ready to go enduro racing. So should be a pretty long episode here in the garage. I'll be toiling all day, and I'll try to compress it down for you guys as quickly as possible, but you'll get to see what's going on. So we're going to be throwing on this IMS 3-gallon tank. Take a look here. There it is. So this is off the 08 to 10, 450, and 510 Husky model. Couple interesting points on this. First of all, IMS doesn't make this tank anymore. So they don't make the EFI version of this tank. So this tank came in two versions from IMS. Originally, you could get the EFI version or the carb version. IMS doesn't have the EFI version anymore, which is what we need because obviously there's the throttle body. The RS500 is fuel injected. So I got on eBay and ordered up what I thought was a EFI version of this tank. It came, and well, there's some good news and some bad news. So good news is that the place for the fuel pump is all the threads are in there. The problem is it's molded shut. So turns out that this is the carb version, which the description on eBay definitely didn't say. This is the carb version of the tank. Now I talked to IMS to just figure out like what the deal is. So they still make this version, the carb version of the tank. The problem is the newer ones from IMS don't have this anymore. They've completely like plugged this off of the mold. So if you're going to order this tank and go through the steps that I'm about to show you as far as like cutting all this out and getting it ready for EFI, you got to be careful because if you ordered this tank from IMS, nowadays it won't have this anymore. But this was a new old stock tank that I bought off eBay, so it had both. So hopefully it's going to go okay. Hopefully I'm not going to turn this into like a $300 paperweight, but we'll find out. Other thing that we have to keep in mind with this tank, because it is for the Husky, you can see that it has the area for the lower shroud. So the Husky had a two-piece shroud design. It would have had an upper shroud here, a lower shroud there. Clearly with the RS500, it's one piece. So both of these guys are for the same year Husky models. So this is saying 2000, 2012, but essentially I'm looking for 8 to 10, right? So 2008 to 2010 radiator braces from Enduro Engineering. We're gonna throw those on, A, because we'll have some more protection for the radiators, which will be a bonus, but B, so we have a place to bolt these guys on. So these are Polysport lower shrouds. So they're essentially going to be fitting into this gap left with the tank here. So yeah, you guys are going to be finding out while I'm finding out how this goes, and we'll see if it's going to be worth the hassle. We'll see if it's going to work, but I definitely want more fuel range, so we're going to figure it out. We'll go ahead and cap that off with some cool new SWM graphics from Fusion Graphics. So let's get started on that. Yeah, so before I go cutting this hole in the tank and generally potentially ruining it, I'm gonna go ahead and pull the stock tank off, and we're gonna do a test fit of everything. We're gonna make sure that those radiator braces and those lower shrouds are gonna kind of all work together here. I wanna make sure to do that before I do any like irreversible cutting, trimming, etc. So I'll pull the stock tank off, we'll get going on that, and then we'll see how this is all gonna fit. Okay, as you guys can see, I got the tank pulled off here. So the couple reasons I pulled the side panels off. First of all, I took the side panels off because I want to be able to have good access in here to go ahead and reroute the head breather. I just wanted to have everything out of the way. Secondly, with the IMS tank, we are going to be able to switch back to the Husky seat and side panels. So I just pulled everything off to save me a little bit of time and make it easier to work in here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start by removing the stock head breather. So these clamps here are like Oetiker clamps, and you're supposed to have like special pliers for crimping them on and whatnot, but you can usually use a flat blade screwdriver to pop them loose. There we go. So I'm gonna work this guy off here carefully. And watch the sun fall down behind the hill. You want to be careful doing this because this is plastic, so you don't want to really reef on it because you don't want to break it out of the head cover. There we go. All right, so now I'll go ahead and repeat the process up here. I'm in love with a woman and she makes me sing a song. I'm in love with a woman and she makes me beautiful. So this is the old head breather hose. This is the end that went into the head cover, and then it snaked through the frame and went into the air boot. This was once a head breather for something. I wish I could tell you what it was, but I just found it in my random parts stash, but it's the exact same size as what we had going before, only it's longer and it already has the cut end so it doesn't pack up full of mud. All right, so yeah, I was able to get this routed awesome. So it just comes out of the head cover and then it just follows the radiator overflow hose down under the throttle body, around the starter motor, and then it actually fit real nice through the stock holder for the radiator overflow hose. So as you can see, it goes through there just right below the overflow hose that goes to the catch tank. It doesn't squeeze it shut, so that's good. And then I'll just take this guy here and just route it down by the shock here. I'll even secure it right here with a little zip tie, but that's gonna work perfect. So obviously the most important part of this mod is after you remove the stock head vent, you need to go ahead and plug this, because otherwise dirt, dust, water, etc. can just go right into your air boot and it'll already be past your air filter, and you don't want that because that'll be a problem for your motor. So I went to the handy dandy hardware store and just got a rubber vacuum cap that's the same size. So I'm gonna go ahead, it's a little bit too long, but it's the right diameter. So I'm gonna go ahead and trim it down so it's the right size, and then we'll slide it on there and cap this off to keep dusting everything out. Give it a little spritz of rubbing alcohol, so it'll just slide right on there. And then we're gonna just slide a little hose clamp over there to make sure to hold everything in place. Then, as I said, I'm also gonna put a hose clamp here where the tube goes into the head breather, just to keep this from coming apart. There we go. Cool. So this simple mod is gonna be a nice little upgrade because it's gonna make sure that the head still vents all the pressure out, but now when I invariably tip it over, instead of the oil dumping into this air boot, which can get in and like gum up my airflow mass sensor or just kind of like generally make a mess out of my air filter and run down everywhere. Now the oil will just harmlessly dump out here, you know, and it's just a little bit, but it's enough that it was inconvenient before. So yeah, really happy with that. Super easy to do. So now let's take a look at the radiator guards and the lower shrouds and the tank and make sure that everything's gonna fit before we start modifying anything any further. So I'm gonna start by basically just setting the IMS tank on there and we'll see how everything fits. All right, so there we go. So just looking at it, I mean, everything is gonna line up okay back here. Like I said before, we're gonna be using the Husky side panels on the Husky seat. So this will all work. But here, now you can see what I'm talking about as far as the Husky used this lower shroud that bolted on here. So let's open up these shrouds here and I'll show you what I'm talking about there. All right, so here's the lower shroud, the lower Husky shroud. So it's supposed to fit generally in this area, ideally. So looks like we're gonna be doing a few mods, trimming here, trimming there, but we'll get it figured out. So, all right, so good news. After reading the instructions, don't tell anyone, I found out that, yeah, we are gonna go ahead and trim these guys. So the instructions do mention here basically trimming off this top tab. All right, so that's all cool. And then it says we're gonna trim the back too. And we're gonna go ahead and move forward. So it looks like this is gonna work great. I will be able to use these guys. I'll just trim them down a little bit and should all work out. So the biggest obstacle we still have in front of us is just trimming out this area to fit the fuel pump. But yeah, let's go ahead and get it figured out. Okay, now from the stock tank, I'm gonna remove these rubber bumpers because we're gonna reuse those on the IMS tank. And then I'm gonna pull the fuel pump out. I want you to burn me up and burn me down again. Yeah, so there's the fuel pump. I'm gonna set that aside. Okay, so now obviously what I want to do to avoid disappointment here is essentially I'm going to really carefully measure all the dimensions here and just make sure that this is the same, because I mean, my initial thought would be to just trim out where the plastic is, but I sure don't want to do that and then find out that I made the hole too big. So I'm going to spend some time carefully measure all this, maybe even make a cardboard template that I can lay over here and just ensure that we get the exact same hole, exact same size hole. So in my first measurement here, I can see that the hole in the stock tank is substantially smaller than if I had just trimmed this outside of here. So yeah, definitely glad that I measured that. As you can see, I'm gonna have to leave some of this material on here to like ensure that there's enough room or enough material to keep the tank from leaking. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a cardboard template so we know exactly what we're dealing with. Okay, so as you guys can see, I went ahead and made a template out of paper instead of cardboard, just because I felt like it'd be easier to trace it out and get an accurate size of this hole. So this is on the stock tank, so pull these bolts out now, and we'll bolt the template onto the IMS tank and trace it, and then we'll go from there. And like I said, I'm gonna trace it and be real careful, be real conservative on what I cut out, because it'll be more time consuming, but it'll be a safer bet to make the hole a little too small and then go ahead and like trim it slowly out to size so we can ensure that we have the best possible seal. All right, so we have that guy bolted into place. So basically what I should be able to do now is just trace this circle, and that should give us the size hole we need for our fuel pump. Okay, as you can see, I mean, the marker line is now going to be inside of the template a little bit, which is great because I want to have more material and still have to do some trimming. It's going to be a lot better than not having enough. So in theory, that's the size we need to cut the hole. So I'm going to go ahead and it looks pretty symmetrical here. It looks a little high there, so I might leave a little bit of material there. And yeah, we're gonna start cutting and keep our fingers crossed. All right, well, reached the moment of no return here. Just getting ready to drill a hole in this tank and plunge a spiral cut tool in there, and there's no turning back now. So it's about to get real. Here we go. Well, if this doesn't work, the tank is officially worthless now. Okay, so overall, I'd say that went really well. There's a big hole in there now. Okay, so we're looking good so far. I'm test fitting the pump in the hole for the first time. As I expected, the hole is a little bit too small, which is great. So I'll go ahead and carefully ease the pump out. There we go, set that aside. And then I'm gonna just use the Dremel with a lot less aggressive bit. And you can see I worked on cutting on the inside of that black line, so it's not surprising that it's a little too small. So I'm gonna just kind of trim up to the black line. All right, let's wiggle it in here and see if it'll fit. All right, so the pump is in there. Obviously I haven't got it bolted down yet, but I think it's in there flush. Holes line up. So I'm gonna pull the pump out and blow all the nasty plastic chunks out of there that I just cut out, all the dust and particles from trimming it. And then we'll bolt it in and pour a little fuel in it, and hopefully it doesn't leak, but I think it's gonna be good. Okie dokie. Here's the piece we cut out. So we don't need that in there. And let's just blow a bunch of air in here. Get it cleaned out. All right, so I went ahead and took the fuel pump back out, cleaned the surfaces really well, and then hit it with some sealant. So I use this Permatex MotoSeal gasket maker. The big thing here, fuel resistant. All right, so now I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the stock Husqvarna petcock I got off eBay. Brand new, it's like 20 bucks. I'm gonna go ahead and unscrew this just because I don't need it. I'm not actually gonna be, the bike's not gonna be drinking any fuel out of here. So I'll take that guy off. I'm gonna make sure that I have the O-ring in place and then just fit it through here. Like so. I'll take just a little bit of anti-seize, throw them on the bolts, just because if I want to take these out, lots of the time steel bolts and brass inserts don't always get along. So throw a little bit of anti-seize on the bolt here. There we go, and then I'll thread them in there. There we go, and then while I was at the hardware store picking out vacuum caps, I got another one. That'll just slide right over the petcock like so. So easy to get off if I want to drain it or get some fuel out, but it's also going to keep debris, mud, sticks, mud dauber, wasps, whatever from getting in there, messing that up. So yeah, with that being said, tank's looking good, fuel pump's in, petcock's in. Now we're gonna fill it with gas and hope it doesn't leak. Okay, moment of truth. I don't know if it's gonna leak. You don't know if it's gonna leak. Ah! Well, good news is it doesn't look like it's pouring out. So, hey. So far, so good. I don't see any. So I'm gonna just let it sit like that for a while. Make sure no puddles develop, and if it's good after a little bit, then we did it and we'll throw it on there. Woo! I'm feeling good about it. I'm feeling a lot better now that it's not pouring out all over the ground. All right, well, let it sit for 10 minutes or so, and then we'll be back. All right, well, looks like we're good. It's been 10 minutes, and I don't see any leaks anywhere. So looks like we're good to go. We got the fuel pump successfully installed, and yeah, let's go throw the tank on. It should be pretty straightforward from here. So nice, totally nice. It's on there. It holds gas. Ah. All right, so good news after reading the instructions. Don't tell anyone. I found out that, yeah, we are gonna go ahead and trim these guys. So the instructions do mention here basically trimming off this top tab. All right, so that's all cool. And then it says we're gonna trim the back too. But it says basically we're gonna start by just cutting this off. We're not gonna use that, so I don't even need to mock that up first. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and trim out this part of this lower shroud. So, as you can see when I line this up, obviously this is gonna be in the way. And the instructions do mention cutting that off. So I'm gonna go ahead and line up my holes here. And then just generally mark where it needs to go. All right, so the tank is on there. Definitely transformed the look of the bike a little bit. It's not too bad, but man, this sure is a big, kind of ugly, solid color here. So luckily the guys at Fusion Graphics have us covered. I mean, you guys will remember with the 5-gallon tank, it was a big black space that didn't look very good either. So they did some custom SWM graphics for that big tank, and I got another set printed for the smaller tank. So we're going to go through the same process we did before, just kind of cutting and trimming and trying to get some official cool looking SWM branding on this thing. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Nice. So same benefit as the graphics on the Safari tank. Throwing these graphics on definitely has like a nice slimming look to it. So now the bike's looking a lot slimmer than it did before, even though it still has the big tank. So thanks for Fusion Graphics for kind of hiding the bulk of the big tank and keeping this thing looking awesome. All right, now we'll throw some graphics on the other side. It's going to be as easy as 1, 2, 3. I noticed that now with this lower shroud off the Husky that's like independently mounted from the rest of the tank, there's really nothing to brace the radiator at all except just kind of like hopes and dreams. So I just figure, like, why chance it? Like, I've got the braces sitting right here. I'll just take some extra time and do it. And I think that'll offer some better protection, and just I think that's a smart thing to do. So let's go ahead and open these guys up, and we'll get them installed. Okay, so just FYI, if you guys are installing Enduro engineering braces on your RS500, so when I bolted the fan on, followed the directions and everything was fine there, but I went to put it on and it was lining up here and the wire was like way too tight. So first impression is that the wire is too short, but that's not the case. There's whatever this is mounted to the frame right here, and the wire for the fan routes up behind this tab on the frame. So I just pulled this guy off real quick, unwrapped the wire from behind the bracket on the frame, so now I have plenty of extra space, and now I can put this piece right back onto the bracket where it goes, and I've got plenty of wire for the fan to line up just like it's supposed to. And hey, there we go. Braces on this side, so it looks like we just need to repeat the process on the other side, minus the whole fan thing. So cool, we'll go over there. Oh, backtracking real quick, forgot to throw my horn on there. So pretty sweet. Basically, I just took this bolt back out of the top brace, and I'm gonna be able to slide the stock horn bracket right back where it went before. It'll line up there, everything will be great. So then I'll just throw this bolt back in, tighten everything down, and it'll be just like it did before. So you can keep your horn in the stock location. Okay, another thing that it says to do in the instructions, and I want to point out because I definitely think it's like a safety or reliability thing. So you can see here you've got the hose that comes out of the hole, goes to the radiator, and then all the wiring is below it. So what you need to do when you install these radiator braces is pull this hose off just temporarily, and then move the wires and reroute all the wires so that they sit over the top of the hose, because the brace is going to sit right in here and we don't want it to smash these wires and work their way through and like cut them or short them out or anything. So just keep that in mind. This is what it looks like before. I'll move them and then I'll show you what it looks like after. All right, there we go. Installation complete on this guy. Looking good. That's gonna be a lot stronger. So, heck yeah, they bolted right on. No modifications. Like I said, here's where the wires sit on top. So I'll just secure those with a little zip tie or something right there, but I think that should be perfect because they would have got pinched back behind there before. All right, so now we're gonna pop the cover off the Rekluse and we're gonna check the gap between the EXP disc and the pressure plate. I'm gonna do that because I haven't been in the clutch here for a while and I put a lot of miles on the bike since then. So I'm gonna just check the gap and make sure that everything is good to go. Okay, so what I'm gonna be doing is taking these feeler gauges and I'm gonna be checking the gap between the EXP disc here and the pressure plate here. Okay, and the reason I'm doing that is I'm essentially checking the free play gain, is what they call it in the manual, but instead of doing that at the lever and taking the cover on and off, I talked to the guys at Rekluse and they basically said that you're looking for between 30 and 35 thousandths of an inch gap in between these two. And if I set it at that, then essentially the clutch is gonna work at optimum. All right, so let's go ahead and check the gap. So 30 fits in there, but it's tight. Twenty-five thousandths fits in there about like I feel it should. Just a little bit of resistance, just the slightest bit. So yeah, it looks like we're about 10 thousandths off, and that matches what I was thinking we were gonna find. Essentially, the smaller this gap is, the less the EXP disc has to move for the clutch to like lock up and the bike to go, right? So basically what that means right now, what I'm experiencing is just a little bit of drag. If I'm in gear and I don't pull the clutch in, I can just feel the bike just having a little bit of drag, and then every now and then it wants to stall. So that's why I'm checking the gap here. Yeah, and finding that I have less gap than I should totally matches my symptoms. So I'm gonna go ahead and loosen these basically, which are just the lock nuts, and then I'm gonna turn the adjuster in like 1 or 2 marks here, and that's gonna get my gap back to where it needs to be. So I'll go ahead and loosen the set screws that lock the adjuster in place. There we go. And then I'm gonna go, we'll start with 2 tick marks. I don't know if you can see them in the video, but there's a mark on the adjuster, and then there's tick marks like a clock all the way around the pressure plate. So I'm gonna go clockwise, which is going to pull the pressure plate away from the EXP disc and give me some more gap. So we're gonna be somewhere, probably 1 or 2. I'm gonna start with 2. There we go, 2 marks. And we'll go ahead and check our gap again. So I'm gonna start by checking at 30. Super loose. try 35. Closer, but still loose. All right, now we'll try 40. Okay, and we're still a little loose there, so I think I went too far. Go ahead and back it up a tick mark here. There we go. All right, so here's 30. Okay. 35. There we go. I feel like that is pretty good right there. Perfect. All right, so we ended up going 1 tick mark is all. So we went 1 tick mark clockwise of where we were before. That put just the smallest amount more gap between the pressure plate and the EXP disc, and that's gonna stop my drag and stop the stalling. It's gonna be back to being perfect. So that was easy. We wanna remember to tighten these lock screws back down. Don't forget to do that. And then I'll throw the cover back on and we'll be done with the clutch adjustment. All right, next on the list, we're gonna swap out some Flexx bars here. So I still have the wide Flexx bars on from my Mexico trip, and Fast Company custom built these guys for me for this bike. So these are the Enduro centers with the adventure handles. So just so you guys know, they essentially have 2 different widths. They have an Enduro width and they have a Moto width. And then they've got 3 different handles. They have an Enduro handle, a Moto handle, and an adventure handle. So the reason they went with this combo, they went with the Enduro width center with the adventure handle so that I'd have plenty of room here for all sorts of like accessories and whatnot. And as you can see, like I haven't used near what is available to me. So this is really nice when I was down in Mexico and there's really like nothing to hit tree wise, but headed to Idaho City, there's gonna be a lot of brush, a lot of bushes, and I don't wanna tag any trees. So that being said, we're gonna swap to some regular Enduro Fast Company handlebars, and they'll be a lot narrower. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the measuring tape out now, and I'll show you guys the difference between the 2 bar widths. All right, so measuring the bars that are on there now. So this is the Enduro centers and the adventure handles. We're looking at 33.5 inches wide. All right, so now we'll walk over, check out the ones that are on my gas. And there's my Riehu, there's my gas. They got the same handlebars on them. These are the Enduro, the full Enduro bars. So Enduro centers, Enduro handles, and measuring these guys, we're at 31.5. So 2 inches narrower overall, 1 inch on each side. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So there you go. You guys can see the difference between the bars. Definitely cool that Fast Company has those options. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pull these guys off. I'll save them for when I head back down to the desert, and I'm gonna throw some Enduro width versions on. All right, we're counting down on the list of things to do. I think all we have left now, besides the finishing touches, is just pulling the front end off, taking the steering stem apart, and greasing it. Yeah, it's looking a little dirty, a little crispy. So go ahead, get it all cleaned up, pack it full of new grease, but yeah, looks like a good time to do it. All right, so I got the bearings all greased and putting it back together. You guys all know what grease looks like, so I didn't bother showing you greasing the bearings, but they were in need, they were ready to get a little attention. So I cleaned them all up, packed them full of new waterproof grease, and now I'm throwing everything back together. Perfect tension's exactly what I want. Has a little bit of resistance, but will eventually fall nice and smooth. It's not all crispy and draggy like before. So sweet. All right, so now we're gonna just throw the finishing touches on the bike. So I know I've been over it a bunch of times already, but twin air fuel sock. This is the same one that was in my Safari tank. So that's gonna fit in there just fine. So that's cool. Throw the cap on, it's provided by IMS. Put that guy on there, and then we'll top it off with vent hose that has a little one-way check valve in it. All right, well, that's it for episode 11. Thanks a lot for joining me in the garage as I get the Project RS500 all ready to go here for the Idaho City 100 Enduro race. So when I see you guys here next, it's weekend after next here, we'll be headed over for Idaho City, and it's gonna be a real cool time. It'll be about 100+ miles, 2 days in a row, all prime Idaho single track. So definitely will be a cool one you guys don't wanna miss, and excited to see how the RS500 handles it, but I'm sure it's gonna be awesome. It was awesome before, and the couple little targeted mods we made are gonna make it that much better. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys soon.